Hello and welcome to our webinar, Leveraging Smart Data and the Internet of Things to Realize Mass Customization. Our speakers are Wolfgang Gruel, a manager at Daimler AG subsidiary for new mobility concepts and a former visiting scholar at the MIT Media Lab. Frank Piller is a professor of technology and innovation management at Aachen University in Aachen, Germany, and is also co-director of the MIT Smart Customization Group. Gruel and Piller are authors of A New Vision for Personal Transportation in the winter 2016 issue of MIT Sloan Management Review. I'm Michael Fitzgerald, contributing editor at MIT Sloan Management Review, and I'll be your moderator today. Our thanks to SAS for their sponsorship of this webinar. This event will be recorded and will be available to all attendees approximately 3 to 4 business days after the end of the live event. In addition, today's slides will be available to attendees. We welcome your questions for our speakers today. To submit questions, please enter them in the chat box in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. Or you can submit questions on Twitter using the hashtag MITSMREvent. If you're having audio difficulties while listening via computer, please call in via telephone instead. Now, let's begin. Wolfgang, please go ahead.
Thank you, Michael, for the introduction and for hosting us today. Welcome, everyone, to our webinar on smart data, the Internet of Things, mass customization, and a lot of insights from the transportation industry. As you already said, our webinar is based on an article that was recently published in Sloan Management Review. It's called A New Vision for Personal Transportation. More information can be found there, so please download it, read it, and of course share the article. My name is Wolfgang Gruel. I've been working as a manager for Daimler and have helped to create new mobility concepts like the car-sharing concept Car2Go and have initiated the route planning service Movo. I've also worked as a researcher at Kent Larson's Changing Places group at the MIT Media Lab. Just a quick disclaimer, the views presented in the webinar are my own and do not reflect the positions of these organizations. Frank.
Hello everyone, my name is Frank Piller, Professor of Technology Management and really looking in this topic of mass customization since almost 20 years. And working with Daimler and Wolfgang on that topic was really fascinating for me, and I will share a little bit more about this. My former work was very much on sports shoes and other tangible objects, but we really learned over the time that mass customization is more and provides especially benefit in the service sector. So what we want to do in the next 30 minutes and so, and then hopefully in the discussion with everyone, we want to address a little bit how mass customization is affecting the personal transportation industry and how to apply those lessons to other industries. As our idea is what we observe nowadays, really in the mobility sector, maybe what will happen in other sectors later. Let's just think about it. The automotive industry often was at the forefront of innovation, new business models. Mass production was invented there, the lean management system, and so on. And so this is what we believe is also happening in this digital transformation. We also want to expand the traditional concept of mass customization with this webinar and really see how Internet of Things, smart products, and smart data enhances it. So Wolfgang will start with giving you a little bit more background about mobility.
Yes, as we are talking about mobility today, I start with some history on mobility. I'm not going to start with the horse, but with a motorized horse buggy, the first automobile that was invented by Carl Benz in 1886. And this automobile was getting a lot of popularity. This made it important to actually find new ways of producing these vehicles. And so in 1913, Henry Ford designed his first moving assembly line and revolutionized the manufacturing process not only of his Ford Model T, but also of the automobile and many other industries. And a famous quote of Henry Ford is that any customer can have a car painted any color that he wants as long as it's black. And this, in my opinion, shows very well some very important aspects of mass production. Mass production has a very big advantage. It made things, here in particular cars, much more affordable. But the question is, does one size really fit all? The odds are very small that you really want the standard black passenger car. You might have the desire for a black car, but maybe you want to use it for different purposes. Or you would even like to have a different color and, again, use the car for different purposes. So we can see that needs are very different, and some companies address these niche markets and modify cars to better meet their customers' needs. And this is not only true for passenger cars, but also for other vehicle categories. Here, for example, an Unimog is used as a railroad engine. Actros is used as a garbage truck. But the adaptations done by companies are often not sufficient for everyone. So users take action and modify their vehicles in different ways, and you probably know many PIMS vehicles that are built to meet their owners' needs better than mass-produced vehicles. So what we see here is that mass production made cars affordable, but these cars do not meet everyone's needs. So it's a huge opportunity to better meet the needs of each individual at competitive prices, and this is where the concept of mass customizations comes into play.
Exactly. And let me share a little bit more about the background of mass customization. And let me say that the examples of these colorful cars we just saw by Wolfgang are exactly not mass customization. They're craft customization, and let me express the differences in a minute. But in many, many industries, not just the automotive industry, we nowadays observe the concept of the long tail. Eric Breinholt-Frossen of the MIT did a lot of research about it on the academic side, and Chris Anderson, the former editor of Wired magazine, wrote a bestseller a couple of years about the long tail, and what he said there is the future of business is selling less of more. So while traditionally we really focus in companies on the bestseller products on the left-hand side, but it has been shown that in digital markets, but also in more and more tangible markets, not just the variety, but also the profit generation moves more and more to the long tail, meaning all the variants in a product category. And our understanding of mass customization has been that the heterogeneity of needs of customers actually is not a threat, but an extraordinary profit opportunity. And in an earlier article with Fabrizio Salvador in 2009 in the MIT Sloan Management Review, we could outline this sort of definition for the first time. And think about, in many companies, the fact that your customers are different is seen as an obstacle, a threat. But actually it's perfect, or it's good that all people and our clients are different, and we should turn this into a profit opportunity. And this exactly is the, let's say, vision statement of mass customization. A formal definition is that we provide goods and services to meet the individual needs of each customer, but we want to do this with near mass production efficiency. And this is very important. It is not about really reinventing craft or engineer to order. It's somehow trying to connect the efficiency of the industrial system mass production with the differentiation and the customization of this one-of-a-kind manufacturing. And many companies and industries have adopted it. There are hundreds of websites in the internet where you can customize a T-shirt or other products. Companies like Harley-Davidson are only big as they sell this promise of individualization, and in this industry, huge aftermarket is taking care of this. In Germany, being very much a component and B2B-driven country, there is a company like Festo, one of our really hidden champions, or they are not so hidden any longer. They sell between 5,000 to 10,000 products and components in the driving system industry and hydraulics every day. All of them are truly customized. And this is a $2 billion company that does not know what it will produce in 3 days, as they have such a high turnaround that they are able to deliver these complex customized products in average in a delivery time of 24 hours and all customized. Sandvik is another example from Sweden, really pioneering the area of mass customized machine tools. And a lot of literature has been on the advantages of really mass customization. You differentiate your product. Customers are willing to pay more for this, that they don't have to compromise. Satisfied customers will provide referrals. You may get additional sales. You have no inventory risk of unwanted products, and so on. And if you want to learn more about it, explore the site, the configurator database. It's configuratordatabase.com, and you find hundreds or even thousands of products in almost all categories that follow this trend in mass customization. Let me now share a little bit more what we learned in the last years, how mass customization is structured, and you will see shortly why I call it the traditional perspective on mass customization. And let me illustrate this with sports shoes, an industry I'm very familiar with. This is Nike ID, a famous site. As a German, of course, I refer to Adidas, our German sports brand. And I could follow the creation of Mi Adidas very closely. Mi Adidas is a site where you really can customize your shoes, and it's not just the color, but you really can customize the fit and the cushioning, so the functionality of that shoe. Let me use this example to really explain what it means to mass customize. And again, this was outlined in this 2009 article in Sloan Management Review. So if you customize, you first have to set the solution space. The solution space is the option space of products where you customize, often represented by the modular product architecture. So in the case of Adidas, these are the brands of sports, the basic styles that are being served, the selection of colors, the selection of sizing ranges, the selection of functional options. And before you mass customize and start to offer it, you really have to determine what is in that space. As the idea is, then if a customer comes, he involves in an activity what we call choice navigation, often developed by a net configurator, that a customer can choose easily, without too much complexity, everything which is what is in this solution space. And then finally, whatever the customer chose can be delivered with robust process design, meaning a company has the ability to produce any combination of these products as if it all would be the same. And we worked many, many years with Adidas to really bring this system forward and make it better and better for the sports shoes. However, the entire time we made a big mistake. Every half a year or so, we were thinking about what is really the colors that we should put in the configurator next. Should we add more performance components or what else? But we never really asked us the one critical question. And this is so simple, but probably it was so simple that we never thought about. And this is, what is really why customers want a custom shoe? Or as Clay Christensen from Harvard would say it, what is the job a customer is hiring a sports shoe to do for her? What is the real open problem? While we were working with Mi Adidas, there was another unit in the company launching Mi Coach. And this was an early version of what you may know from Nike with Apple Plus or Nike Plus. It was a wearable, a sensor in the shoe that was communicated with your smartphone. And here the value proposition was not to customize your shoe, but you customize the usage state, the service the shoe is providing for you. And to our surprise, but perhaps in a hindsight very obvious, this business unit was much more successful. As perhaps the open problem customers really had was not with so much a better fit of the shoe, but it was really with customizing the training regime, getting the service of a personal trainer at a very affordable price. So we really have to remember that customization per se provides no benefit to customers. We really have to look for these issues and features where customer needs are different and customers are willing to pay for the fact that we address these differences. And therefore, mass customization is much larger than product. Capital One became one of the largest issuers of credit cards, not by customizing the card itself, like by uploading pictures, but we're really personalizing the contract to personal preferences, payback options, and so on. one of the big growth stories is personal health nowadays. And of course, there's personalized medicines on the side of the pharmaceuticals, but a lot is really about the personalized service delivery of the healthcare system. Or as a professor, I'm highly interested, of course, in personalized education, as I'm very sure that the way how we will teach in 5 or 10 years will be very different to the way how we teach today, as thanks of massive open online courses, platforms like edX, edu, and so on, we really can deliver the teaching experience in a much more customized way to every individual student. So seeing not just the product, but the entire service space as part of mass customization is one thing. But now let's turn to the Internet of Things. As the Internet of Things has a second very important opportunity for mass customization. This is the Adidas One. It was developed in 2006 and was one of the first real smart products. It was not a success at this time. Well, it made it to the page 1 of the New York Times, so on that side it was a success, but commercially it was not. But the product was really forward-looking. What you had here in this product was on the one hand side a sensor really tracking how you were running in the ground. It had a small motor here, so you could move the string and adapt the cushioning of the shoe. It had a built-in configurator that allowed you to configure the shoe while you were using it. The downside at this time was that the shoe came with a 60-page handbook you had to study before using your shoe. Sometimes you had to reboot your shoes as the sensor was down and you had to take care of the batteries of your shoe. So it was a very early smart product, but lacking one important component. And this is very much the promise of Internet of Things. So it was a product that was aware. It had sensors to really get information about the environment. It was intelligent. It could process this information in this way to control the third element, the actor. It was responsive. It could control the motor to change the cushioning. The product was not, however, connected. At this time, no one thought about connecting it with a smartphone, what was just launched in the year when the product was launched. We are now engaged in a large research project with Adidas to do the smart shoe 2.0, so to say. And of course, here all our thoughts are about the connectivity. And think about, perhaps this shoe that was mass-produced in the manufacturing is the best way to offer mass customization to a consumer, as all the customization will be enabled in the usage stage. And if this shoe now communicates with the app and not just has sensor information, but also these kind of adaptable actors that enables it to change a little bit the properties of the hardware, with this we really can come to a very new understanding of what mass customization is and how we can deliver personalization. And so therefore customization and personalization are really some of the core drivers of this digital transformation, fourth industrial revolution, IoT or Industry 4.0 as we call it in Germany. And all these new technologies that are nowadays discussed as drivers of digitalization and so on are really enhancing also the traditional mass customization system. Because of big data, cloud, simulation, we can provide better choice navigation. Of course, we can use augmented reality, 3D printing, autonomous robots to also make a traditional one-of-a-kind manufacturing system more efficient. We also can gather much more information from customers to enhance and create a better solution space. But perhaps we really this is not enough. We really have more opportunities if we don't reduce mass customization on customized manufacturing, but really using these smart services and connected products as the entire solution space for our mass customization options. So I am saying now that perhaps the age of mass customization may just have started, even if Joseph Pine, somehow the father of mass customization, pioneered and wrote first about this concept in his master thesis at MIT Sloan in 1991.
So we learned a lot about mass customization now, Frank, but the question that is here is how can we apply this knowledge to the field of mobility? And of course, car manufacturers have thought a lot about mass customization, and actually they are already mass customization companies. And you can, for example, configure your cars, you can change colors, wheels, special equipment, exterior elements, and of course you can also change the interior, like the colors of your seat, features of the infotainment system, and many more things within the car. Car manufacturers also learned a lot from the smartphone industry. In a Tesla that has a really huge dashboard, you can, for example, configure this dashboard, load apps, change the style of a dashboard, etc. But the car manufacturers not only thought about the choice navigation, they also thought a lot about the solution space development. So they built actually a modular system of components that can be used in different kinds of vehicles. For example, first they created a platform strategy so they could leverage synergies within one vehicle class. Then they further modularized the components within the cars and actually are able now to reuse a lot of components in different vehicle classes, which of course gives a variety of opportunities. And the challenge there is obviously not only in the production process itself to bring the right pieces to the right at the right time to the right places, but also to design vehicles that have components where every part fits into each other, and this is totally important for the car manufacturing companies. So we could see that mass customization is already applied in the auto industry, but uses advanced mechanisms for choice navigation and very smart and sophisticated production processes. But maybe that's not all. So maybe we take one step back and think about why people use a car. And if you ask people, probably most of the people will tell you, oh, I have a car because I want to get from point A to point B. But actually what they want to have is not getting there, but they want to be at point B. Very few people are just enjoying driving. And sometimes these people want to deliver some goods or bring some stuff. Maybe they want to travel with family and friends or express their individuality, or they want to just show how wealthy they are. And for all of these needs, we have one solution. This is the car. It's 1 to 3 tons of metal and plastic that we buy to meet all the desired needs, and probably even more needs. But there is a big overhead if you buy a car. So when you buy a car with 5 seats, just in case you go on vacation with your family and a lot of luggage, but in your everyday life, only 1 seat is used. Cars are only occupied with 1.4 to 1.6 persons. That means we move around a lot of empty space. And this is not only expensive, but also causes traffic jams, makes it more difficult to find parking, and eventually leads to land development that is very car-centric and not very people-centric. So this compromise, when we buy a car, does not meet the needs of the customer, and is also not very efficient. The question is there any hope? And yes, there is. In recent years, new technologies emerged that might help to meet needs better and at the same time increase efficiency. Probably the single most important innovation in mobility is the mobile internet. It allows for new mobility services and as a consequence can help to use our existing assets in a better way. And this brings enormous business opportunities. In the last couple of years, many new services emerged. Some of them, like Lyft or Uber, have a multi-billion evaluation in the meantime. One of the first services that has made use of these new technologies is Zipcar. Zipcar is a car-sharing company that allows its customers to rent cars by the hour. Gas, service, insurance, etc. is just included. You have to reserve your car in advance, go to a Zipcar station, and after your rental, you have to bring it back on time. But this is actually a very big commitment and seems to be one of the reasons why people just don't use car sharing. So back in 2008, we at Daimler Business Innovation thought about a way to deal with these factors and invented Car2Go. Car2Go is the first free-floating car-sharing system. You can spontaneously rent a car and you can take it wherever you want. You keep it as long as you like and you just drop it off wherever you like. Of course, insurance, fuel, parking within the business areas and everything is included in the price. That is actually paid per minute. We are now in more than 8 countries, in 31 locations. We have more than 15,000 vehicles and more than 1.2 million customers. Every 1.4 seconds, Car2Go rental starts. Another way to customize mobility is to use peer-to-peer car sharing. This is basically the Airbnb of car sharing. If you have a car, you can rent it out easily. If you need one, you can find it with your smartphone and rent it in an easy way. But so far, we've still been talking about cars. The same principles can also be applied for seats. Companies like BlaBlaCar or MatchRider are brokering empty seats, and you can get to your destination with a person that just shares the way with you. In classic ride-sharing services like BlaBlaCar or MatchRider, you rely on someone that is driving a similar way than you do, but some very smart people there, some drivers turn this relation around. They offer to drive you wherever you want to go, and this is actually something we know from the taxi business. However, some new apps like Uber or MyTaxi bring new user experience and make it possible to manage taxis and drivers much more efficient, and this has, of course, also an effect on the prices. We also see some dynamic bus services emerge. These are a mix between taxi and bus systems. The buses are not running on real lines, but adapt their routes dynamically to the demand of the customers. And we also can share other means of transportation. So we see sharing systems like bike share systems, scooter share system, and even airplane sharing systems nowadays. So we can see that in the transportation industry, the Internet of Things and smart data plays an important role. The actors, not only things, but also people, are connected via mobile phone and mobile internet. A lot of data is exchanged between sensors in vehicles that provide real-time information and the customers. Both parties do not own.
At this time, I believe, let me jump in here, we play a trick with our audience, as I just see we have a German slide here. Apologies for this. But we really go more, as what Wolfgang presented here is really new options to think about. In the end, you have many more options to personalize your trip from A to B instead of just using your car. And of course, and this is what is seen here, this also is transferred to another level of these services by integrating the access and the payment to these systems really with regard to your smartphone and payment. And so we could say, is this really all the mass customization thing? Is it it? Yes, we would say yes, as new technologies really enable new value chains here. And they match better customer needs by producing mobility at mass efficiency. And in the end, that's a perfect mass customization system for me, and perhaps really fulfilling more needs as this traditional way of configuring a car to order. So how can we now apply a little bit the framework that I introduced earlier on choice navigation and smart and robust processes in this mobility sector? Wolfgang will share that again.
So basically, all these apps that I've been talking about could be seen as a choice navigation instrument. But an optimal choice navigation instrument would offer you even more opportunities. You would open an app, enter your destination, you would get several opportunities that you can choose of. You choose the best connection for your current needs. You can book the service without juggling with different accounts for each mobility provider. You are supported by the app on the way to your destination and until you finally arrive. And an app like this has been built by us. It's called Movil, and Movil actually includes several mobility providers in Germany. And to give you an impression of Movil, you can see on this slide how a train ticket is booked. You could just enter your mail address, on the, your destination address right here. You get some suggestions of connections. You can dive into the details. You can book your trip, and later you can actually see the ticket or the reservation code for the trip that you booked.
And I think, Wolfgang, the really interesting thing of Movil, if I use it, is that it also helps me not just to book the train ticket, but really gives me all the options how to come from A to B, and it may suggest me, as it knows that the train will have a delay, as there's an accident on the track, and recommends me a free seat in a ride-sharing service. So really providing this aggregated planning and making it even more personalized.
Exactly. It gives you different opportunities from different means of transportation, different mobility operators, and you have the choice which opportunity might serve your needs best. But Movil is not the only app that is offering such services. One of them is also Quixit, which is made by Deutsche Bahn. Another one is Ellie or Move It. And these apps are actually emerging at the moment with different approaches, different sets of mobility providers, but they all have the same principle as a basis. Another principle that is often used is using the map paradigm that is used by Google, Apple Maps, Nokia Here Maps, and they have their origins in vehicle routing, and in the meantime, they also offer routes for public transit or bike travel. But so far, apps were used to express your mobility desires. They help you to actively configure your trip. However, there are technologies in place that predict your mobility needs. For example, Google Now learns from your previous behavior, your calendar, and other factors where you want to go next and which mode of transportation you might prefer. For example, it reminds you that you should get going if you want to catch your plane and suggests a route and a means of transportation. So what we can see here is that apps for your smartphone, for your smartwatch, or whatever devices are becoming your travel companion. They integrate information from different sources like weather and traffic, and also consider customer preferences. The information can be static but gets more and more in real time, so they consider traffic data, they consider weather data, they consider data that's collected from cars and from the government, and these different data sources are actually combined, and the challenge is to make sense out of this data and to provide the information in an easy and a useful way to the customer.
And what Wolfgang is now saying so easily, indeed actually is a revolution in mass customization thinking. Before I explain this, a small note to some people asking for the slides. Yes, the slides will be shared after the webinar. So why is this a revolution, what Wolfgang just said? As traditionally, mass customization was enabled by presenting all the choices to the customer in long choice lists and then asking the customer to go all through the options and configure his or her product. What is happening now on sites like Movil or in Smart Mobility is that really the algorithm uses smart data on your past behavior in suggesting the best solution to you. And this is also what Joe Pine said many times, that in the end it's not that customers want choice. They want exactly what they want at the time, when they want it and how they want it. And this is one of the things what we really can learn from these new mobility startups and offerings, that they don't present you all the choice options, but they use data about your past behavior to provide a better starting configuration for the future. However, and now we come to the hard part, to enable this, we also have to transfer the idea of robust processes to smart customized mobility. Remember, robust processes was the idea that you had stable processes which are somehow mass-produced, but you flexibly can combine them in a way that every consumer or customer gets his or her individual product as if they all would be the same at the price level of mass production.
Exactly, and we propose that we can see mobility chains as a production line for mobility, and I'm going to explain a little bit what we mean with this. I already explained that apps can help us in the mobility jungle, and they make it much easier to find the best way from point 1 to point B. So we have a lot more options and a lot better transparency on the mobility options. But it's not only about transparency. Sometimes it's also about connecting different modes of transportation. So actually create modules of transportation that fit into each other and that we can combine to achieve our goals, which means getting from one point to another in a fast or cheap or pleasant way, in a better way. The best way might also not be only using one mean of transportation, but for example, you could combine these means of transportation. You could drive with your bike to the train station, use the subway to a station close to your destination, and use a car to go for the last trip, part of your trip. But what do we need to do in order to create a system like that? To create a meaningful offer, it's important to create a mobility ecosystem that includes different service providers. On this slide, you can see car sharing, car rental companies, ride sharing, bike sharing systems, and so on. But to work together with all these companies, it's very important that you create real partnerships with different mobility operators. And these partnerships need to be beneficial for all sides. This is sometimes a little tricky as many mobility providers perceive each other as competitors. So you have to juggle with a lot of different interests and a lot of different goals. Besides of the goals and the interests, also the business models and processes are very often different. Public transit fees are usually fixed, whereas taxi fees are dependent on time and distance, for example, or you pay a taxi after a trip, whereas you usually buy a train ticket before you start traveling. And the complexity of the business processes is also reflected in the data requirements, of course. While transit data often contains lines, stops, times, delays, and so on, the basis for taxi businesses is the position of more or less free-floating vehicles, their availability, and also information about the pickup and the pickup location. It's not enough that the domains have very different data requirements. In all of the domains, different standards and data formats exist. However, these standards are very often not interchangeable, and you can imagine the complexity if you think about how complex it's for us as humans to just convert from inches to meters or stuff like that. So it gets to something like a Babylonian language confusion. But services like Move are actually tackling this issue, and they have the goal to deal with all of the different data sets. And so you need to build up the capability to, first of all, read all this data. This sounds easy, but there are a lot of different standards in place as well, like JSON or whatever XML, so it's quite tricky. And as soon as you read this data, you have to make sure you understand the data properly, and you need to consider all the different business processes of the operators in order to integrate them into your product. So therefore, the interface... Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, and actually what Wolfgang is now saying, and it sounds very technical, and indeed it is a big technical challenge. And this is one, I think, of the technical challenges we have to tackle if we really want to profit from the smart data, the network, the connectability between these smart products. But from my understanding and working with companies like Daimler, there even is a larger challenge. And that's the challenge that is happening in the heads of the managers at this time, as they really have also to learn to make different kind of connections. As what is seen here, sounds so simple, perhaps not technically, but on the drawing. But it's a very different understanding of partnership and networks for a company like Daimler. To enable the traditional mass customization in Daimler, to make these cars configured to orders, Daimler required to have a few but very close and closely steered partnerships with a few suppliers that were integrated in a just-in-time factory, for example, to provide components customized for a specific vehicle order. What they need to build here in this system are hundreds or even thousands of loose partnerships with different providers of transportation capacity. And these are partnerships that really function in a very different way. And I had the opportunity to meet the CEO of one of the big car-sharing companies, and it was an investment by Daimler. And he said to me that his main decision to make a strategic partnership is not the finances or the quality of the other partner, but the quality of the API. The API is this technical data interface. So the way how we address strategic partnerships to deliver overall this personalized service is very different than to the old thinking in mass customization. And this is probably one of the main things we have to learn as managers when we want to enter this space. I would say, Wolfgang, before we perhaps have 2 more minutes to the future, perhaps we stop at this point and take some of the questions from the audience in the chat. And so perhaps, Michael, we give back to you, and perhaps you can tell us some of the questions we may address at this point.
Hi, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So you have a bit more of your presentation, or are we fully in Q&A now?
No, let's do Q&A now at this point, and then we can wrap up with a few in the future. But I think there were some really interesting questions in the from the audience.
Sure, and some of them are specific questions about things you've been saying. So that's fine. All right. So very quickly, were there a couple questions that you wanted first? Did you specifically see one you wanted to ask? Like, for instance, there was, when you were talking about all the mobility, someone asked a question about what are the key factors of the choices that need to be made available. Would that be one you want to do?
Yeah, okay, let's start with this. As this is one really of the big open strategic options. And I think it's as much true for the old customization than for this new world of customized services we were just presenting. And the ultimate question really is to know where customers want choice. And as I said earlier, it's very often that mass customization systems have been driven by the need, or by the ability of a company to just customize. But they're not really considered what are the options that make sense. And there are a couple of tools like advanced market research methodologies that really should look into the fields where are these unexploited opportunities. And that's actually also one area where I believe that smart data provides a lot of opportunity. Why are people going to a website or a forum and talk about a product? Either where they really like it a lot, but in more instances, as they don't like it so much or they miss a feature. So using smart data analysis to really going to user forums, social media websites, and so on, actually is a great source for companies to identify options which are not fulfilled by the current offerings and where customization could start in a meaningful way. So this is actually one of the most important success factors determining where you want to have options.
So we have a kind of follow-up on that, on how a system might react, and this may be in regards to a specific system you mentioned. It doesn't actually say, but if you have multiple people who are trying to find the best way forward, and perhaps their use of a car might interrupt with someone else's route, how do you pick and choose your optimum route for all the parties without limiting people within it?
Yeah, that's definitely for Wolfgang, that question.
Yeah, that's kind of a tricky part, of course, but actually, if you know a lot more about the system, you can use artificial intelligence methods, optimization methods, neural networks and stuff like that to get an optimal for all of them. the big question there is not only how to compute this, but also how to communicate this to all the people. Because actually you would have to say to everyone, okay, if every one of you takes this route, you will be stuck in traffic jam. And so you would have to say to some of them, please use the other route. And maybe you all will be a little bit slower, but it's still better than if everyone takes a specific route.
And then I guess as a kind of related follow-up, if you're in a government, a lot of governments are talking obviously about how to have smart mobility in their cities, how to be smarter cities, period. So if they're going at this by sort of trying to deploy physical equipment or use their own apps, should they perhaps shift gears or should they keep on the same path?
Yeah. Perhaps, Wolfgang, you could share more about your practical experience, but I would say, Michael, this is, of course, the number one strategic question. And what is happening here, we didn't use the term, but what is happening here is the advent of platforms or business ecosystems. And we know from economics that in most markets, this is a winner-takes-all market. So there will be not too many different platforms or business ecosystems for mobility, but in the end, just one. And then the city governments or public entities that provide public transportation will be reduced to not more than an app on that platform. But actually, perhaps that's not a bad value proposition. As we know, you also can get mega rich from an app, as you don't need all the complexity to build these ecosystems and the connectivity and the technical intelligence Wolfgang was just talking about. So I see in the moment a lot of experimentation in the market and really a lot of people and public entities that want to own these space. But as an economist, what I am by training, we just know that this will not happen. So this is probably where we also need a little bit of rethinking with these actors. Wolfgang,
let me quickly jump into that. But there is, of course, some sort of a winner-takes-it-all mentality in some markets. But there's also in other markets some big variety and diversity. It depends actually on the kind of market and also on maybe local aspects that your platform or service is acting on. The important thing is, in my opinion, that all the data is open and everyone can build his or her own platform to actually leverage his knowledge in the field and create the best value proposition for his or her customers.
Okay, so we could keep going in this, but I actually want to also get at some other questions about other aspects of the presentation so far. There was a question about privacy, pointing out that the EU-US Privacy Shield will be replacing Safe Harbor. So how are these systems going to learn, as they learn about the user, how do they protect the user's privacy? How do they deal with things like data encryption, storage locally or someplace else? What do they do?
That's actually a tricky part because privacy is a very, very important issue, of course, but without sharing some data about you, you won't get the benefits of a system that knows a lot about different actors in the system. So the challenge here is to transmit the data in an anonymous way. And there's, for example, a very interesting project at Sandy Pentland's group at MIT Media Lab that creates a data store where you can determine which data you want to share with whom. But to actually get the benefits of these systems, it's of course important to share the data, and I would say in a anonymous way, or most anonymous way possible.
So is that going to limit the ability of companies to sort of tap into these to develop new kinds of products or systems?
Yes and no. I think it's really what we learn, and for me it will become one of the main factors, really perhaps of competitive advantage of these people, the ability to balance between these two interests, the interest of privacy on the one hand side, which comes, as Wolfgang just said, with the ability to really deliver a personalized service, and the other side also to profit from that. From the past experience we had with mass customization, we really learned that if you provide real value to customers that they really perceive, that are very much willing to trade in private data. A traditional case was 3D body scanning, which is somehow the most private information you can share, really a full picture of your almost naked body. But once you use this information to provide custom clothing, people were very willing to share it, of course, always in the hope that these pictures don't end up in the internet. So, and I think this is the big responsibility of the providers, and as I said, will become part of the competitive differentiation, that they take care of that. But at the same time, I think they really have to engage in business models that are not just generating value for them by all the data, or use it to really fine-tune pricing level and some of rip-off customers, but they really have this ability to deliver customized value for each individual consumer. And then I think also the debate on privacy will shift a little bit from where we are today.
Okay, and then the follow-up on that from the person who asked was what parts of the data do you think will be public, and are there going to be standards for these? Do they exist now, these standards?
There are already parts of data that are public, like, for example, a lot of public transit agencies publish their data, a lot of taxi or car-sharing companies publish their data in open APIs. And I also also the data on traffic jam that is, for example, collected by Google is public. So you can see that a lot of people are moving on a specific road, and this is already public data, but you cannot conclude on individuals. And I think there will be a lot of data following exactly these principles that will tell you something about the status of certain, for example, infrastructure parts without telling you who was there or who is there at the moment.
Okay, so I want to pause now and just note that if you have a wrap-up slide or two you want to share, yeah, now might be a good time because I could ask you questions for the next 9 minutes, but if you have something you want to wrap up with, now you should do it.
Okay, then let's really close the presentation. There was a small part about autonomous vehicles, but I would say you'll email Wolfgang about that for private conversation. So let's really summarize a little bit at this point and then come back to the discussion, which I really enjoy and I think is very valuable. We hope that we could show a little bit that mass customization does not just mean to produce a product on demand for an individual customer. This still is important, don't get us wrong, but we think the space is really bigger. Smart connected products, access to data, and these digital manufacturing technologies, and manufacturing probably more seen as fulfillment, really enable a new generation of mass customization solutions. And as we said at the very beginning, we believe it makes a lot of sense to really study very carefully what is happening in the mobility and transportation industry, as this industry really is ahead of other sectors in utilizing these opportunity spaces. So before we return back to the questions, we really hope that we could provide some input. Both of us are really eager to discuss even offline after you on the topic. So emails and Twitter accounts are here. And now let's really return back to the questions and back to you, Michael.
Okay, so I just want to note for our audience that concludes the presentation portion of our program, obviously. So we will move into further in our Q&A. We will only be here through the end of the hour. We'll try to get through as many as we can. I do want to remind you that in addition to submitting your questions by entering them in the chat box in the lower left corner of the webinar screen, you can enter them onto Twitter using the hashtag MITSMR event. So the next question I think I wanted to get into, we've had some questions about pricing. Now, how do you try to figure out pricing in this new realm? Would one of you like to take that on?
Yeah. Wolfgang, the example of Movil.
Yeah, the example of Movil is a very good one at this point because different mobility operators have different pricing schemes, and the question is which role as a platform do you want to play? You can either be a travel operator that offers the whole mobility chain, so you would have to purchase public transit trips and taxi trips and stuff like that, or you can try to resell basically the services that you want to have the customer to use. And the pricing there is very, very tricky because of the parts that I've been talking about, the different pricing schemes. But whenever you have enough information about all these different mobility chains, you can create totally different new pricing schemes, like offer prices for a whole trip that is based on statistic information on fleet mixes and mode mixes and stuff like that.
And of course, once you have the product smart, going back to the example of the smart shoe by Adidas, think about if the shoes have sensors and communicate to your cell phone, probably we will perhaps give the shoe away for free, but charge you for every kilo you lose while using the shoe and running. And probably for this, your willingness to pay may be aggregated much higher than just for the hardware.
That would be really interesting. I could see myself getting free shoes and not quite losing the weight, but that will, I'm sure, emerge. We actually do have a number of business model questions along those lines. There were questions about, and I guess I'm going to give you three industries that people ask specifically about how you might apply mass customization to. One is technology consulting, one is consumer appliance products, and one is in housing. If you've got a great case study in one of those three areas, people want to know how you change your business model with IoT.
Okay, so these are all three. It's interesting that that exactly these three industries were coming up, and they are discussed for many years. Let's start perhaps with the most complex, housing, and that is actually work at the MIT Media Lab in the Smart Cities group, and Kent Larson and colleagues looked a lot into the customization of housing. And there are prefabs and kind of modular architecture, but also what we see in more novel housing constructions, and perhaps what we call the smart house or the smart home, is again the better solution to deliver customized housing. And the old idea of really having prefab that easily can configure it has been rolled out, but it never captured more than a niche market. And as it may be that by decorating the house, or as I would say in the future, by interacting with your smart home, you get a higher level of meaningful personalization. Appliances were in my slide decks, let's say, for the last 15 years as one of the next opportunities. But no one of the big appliance manufacturers really engaged in enable us to customize the fridge or customize the washing machine. As perhaps they were clever than me suggesting this, as they somehow realized what is the real value out of it. But what we now saw in the CES in Las Vegas and other shows, we finally get these internet-connected fridges. And it's probably not that the fridge has a smart, like a panel on the door that you can stream your pictures there. But the idea of that the fridge perhaps really can now communicate with the supermarket and with your phone and monitor your storage can provide real convenience. So appliances are definitely one of the areas where I believe customization or mass customization based business model will not come from customizing the hardware, but really what we put into the fridge or into the washing machine, and so on.
So let me. Oh, go ahead. All right.
So go ahead, please, Mike.
Well, so I really want to jump in here and say, in that example, did it take 15 years because, like many organizations, they didn't have the right skills in place, or that they needed to sort of change the way they thought about R&D?
It's very much a skill issue, would I say, but in the appliance business, probably the managers intuitively realized there is not a big market to do it. As perhaps people, what you do with your appliances, you try to hide them behind a nice decorated kitchen cover, and the inside is a very, very standard size. So, and it's probably a kind of the mindset in these companies that is really a hurdle to implementing mass customization. And this may also mean that these personalized filling and interaction with your fridge, your washing machine, this may be not really brought forward by the traditional appliance manufacturer, but this may be more brought forward by startups or other actors. Think of Amazon Dash. Some of you may know it. This is a button you can put all over your home, and you just press it and you reorder consumable items. And this perhaps is a much more meaningful personalization, as it really enables you to offer to integrate everything in your household. And who is ever offering it? Amazon, somehow e-commerce player that really understands how platform works, and not a traditional appliance manufacturer where the things that you order with the Amazon Dash button are stored into.
And I guess there's a second reason that is mostly the customer, and I think we, in recent years, we learned a lot on how to shop differently. So 10 years ago, no one had the idea to have their food delivered. Nowadays, you can't read any newspapers without reading about a new food delivery service. And we never thought about ordering food via the internet. Now it's quite common, and things like that might lead to a totally different field of usage in the appliance sector.
Okay, so it's 2 o'clock. Our time is through. I know that you had indicated you'd be willing to take questions via email as follow-ups. There are way more questions than we could get to, and I have follow-ups on some of the things you said that I don't have time to ask. So am I correct in saying that people could email both of you or one of you with follow-up questions?
Absolutely. We're looking forward to that.
Yes.
Okay.
And then we know what to do on the weekend.
There we go. So I have to say I'm very sorry, audience, that we couldn't get to more of your questions, but this does conclude this portion of our program. I do want to again say thank you to our sponsor, SAS. And I will say that in addition to being able to email them, there will be a recording of this program and the presentation slides available within 3 to 4 business days. So thank you very much for attending our program today on this up-and-coming driver of new kinds of innovation. And thank you very much to our speakers. Have a great day.